Good morning once again. I say once again because we've done this a few times. Yes, good morning. It is Garden America. We are back in studio. I'm Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, and thank you, John. John's got his phone feeding back as always. What would the opening of a show be, Tiger, if John didn't have feedback on his telephone?
You know, I didn't have the problem last week.
No, you didn't because we were off last week.
Yeah, exactly.
But we are back this week, back in studio.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
welcome back.
There should have been a way to turn that off without turning my phone off.
Well, you know what it is? It's a panic thing. You start pushing all these buttons, and you go, I'm just going to turn it off.
Just throw it up against the window. Just throw it out the car as you're going along.
You know, John likes to hear us talk and then hear it back again immediately on his phone to make sure that what he heard was correct.
Well, you've been to my house. I'm used to hearing echoes when people talk.
Exactly.
That used to be my problem with the laptop over here. So, you know what my solution was? I don't even bother turning it on anymore.
Exactly.
I did notice Veronica said great newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good newsletter.
What was your favorite
Not
part?
Great. Not great. It
The
was
favorite
good.
part of the newsletter? The colors.
Really? You like the colors.
Now, you know, last week we weren't here, but in the newsletter, it was all about setting your clocks back, falling back again.
Right.
And because we weren't here, a lot of people forgot to do it because they depend on us. So I feel bad for those people. We weren't on the air, and I didn't know we had to turn our clocks back. So that's a big responsibility, and that was in the newsletter.
Do you think they're here today?
Gone tomorrow? I hope. Well, there's Sue, there's Lenore, there's Tanya. We got a good crew
Good morning,
on board.
everyone.
Thank you for tuning in.
It's a weird time of year, too, because we're having beautiful weather right now.
Oh, my gosh, that drive in today?
Yeah, sunny skies, clear, warm, crisp in the evenings.
You've been
mornings.
having beautiful weather.
We've been having absolutely perfect
But
weather.
I've been having 3 days, I told you guys, 3 days of constant wind.
Yeah.
And just in my area.
Hot and warm, dry wind, too.
Yeah. Hey, Tanya
they've been
liked your
Santa
rose,
Ana's.
Tiger.
What?
Tanya loved Tiger's rose.
The orange juice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. John was saying you got a few.
I've had people asking me how to get that rose.
You'll have to make
Beth
cuttings.
from Northern California says, yeah, I need cuttings.
Yeah, you'll have to do cuttings because
And you know what? Mine is barely alive.
Really?
Yeah, just barely. I may need cuttings pretty soon.
In a can still, though.
No, it's in the ground.
Yours is in the ground and it's barely alive?
What
I
did
didn't
wind
put
do
it
to
in
your
the
roses?
ground till it was almost
Your roses
dead.
okay? Did they survive the wind okay?
Yeah, the wind doesn't bother the roses, but all the nice trees the Tiger planted.
Right.
All the crepe myrtles are completely stripped and burned leaves.
So what's the aftermath?
Well, right now everything's okay. I had a few.
Wait a minute. I love how Brian just equated this
to a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, John, did FEMA come by? You know,
We're talking gusty wind, not hurricane force.
Oh, the way you built
no
the story
gale
up
force winds.
before we started the show, it was like a hurricane came blowing through there.
Well, compared to what you had nothing.
That's an average morning in some places.
Like Leslie Gore, right?
Well, you made it sound like the trees he planted were uprooted, that were flying through the air.
Well, I had two. I told you guys how much I really like hakeas. Now, that was you, Brian, not me.
No, that was me saying everything looks and sounds good. That's all that was, that little beep beep.
Where were we?
You're talking about...
Oh, yeah. I really like hakeas, and I had two hakeas that I bought at the Huntington Gardens plant sale. Mm-hmm. And they both grew amazingly fast. Hakea petiolaris, which I had before, and another one which I'm not familiar with. And I would say they were about 5 to 6 feet tall. Both of them blew over, like flat on the ground. So the one I cut back, the other I put a stake on.
How long have they been in the ground for?
Since shortly after you landscaped that area.
Spring, right?
Right.
So, that's 6 months.
Yeah.
And they didn't root to hold in. Your soil, I bet you are going to have that problem because we all remember that John's soil is rock.
Right.
So it's going to take those roots so much time and effort to actually hold secure soil,
Well, they've got to root into rock.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so in order to not fall over and that's going to take some time.
It can be done. Those magnolias are rooted.
No, I mean, we've seen
Yeah.
trees root into amazing areas, but it's just going to take, like you say,
Yeah.
it's going to take more. Meaning, normally in 6 months, I feel a tree or a shrub is rooted into the ground around
Established
it.
to some degree?
To some degree. Like, it's not going to fall over in a windstorm. Where with John, it's going to take maybe a year for those roots to actually grab into that rock and be able to hold. Because even if they rooted in 4 or 5 inches into the DG rock soil, they're the real soft, easily breakable roots that can,
Conversation about decomposing granite, huh? Okay.
Hey, behind my house, next to the house, I put in last week planted the Japanese rose garden.
Oh.
So all the roses we saved from Descanso Gardens, long story on that. We've talked about it before. But anyway, those are all planted, except the area, if you go into the garage, there's a little tiny area on the right.
Yeah.
Would icy blue podocarpus be too big for there if you kept them trimmed?
Right next to the air conditioning units, right there?
Across the walk from that.
Across the walk.
Yeah, in that little tiny area.
No, they would be okay. Icy blue are very slow growing.
Yeah.
And very manageable, meaning like they eventually would get too big.
At my age, I don't worry about eventually anymore. What I think about is
just trying to make it till 4 p.m.
like how big is this going to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
After that, I don't care.
Yeah, no, icy blue would do fine in that area because you can easily manage it.
Yeah, and I think they'd look good there.
Yeah, they would look good there.
Can you get me 2 of them?
Yeah, but the one issue that you're going to have to be careful with in that area is it's shaded, right? Against
partially,
the house,
yeah.
Right. So icy blue do get the mold, sooty mold, I think, sooty mold, not mildew, on the foliage a bit. So you just want to be
sooty mold usually comes from aphids, right?
right. Yeah, but being in the shade, being that variety in there, you might get a bit of that. But you can manage it. It's right there. Yeah.
I have to. Next time you come by, we have to fix the sprinkler over there. That's the one that broke.
Did another one broke or the same one?
No,
broke?
another one broke.
Oh.
And flooded my garage.
What did you do?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
It wasn't Tiger.
No.
It wasn't Tiger, but I just put a temporary fix on it.
Okay.
We should have a get-together, though, anyway, over there.
Yeah.
What's the season for get-togethers, right?
And he's done so much work, even since the last picture.
Dana hasn't seen anything. Never been to the house. Never saw the landscaping.
Come on over.
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to have Thanksgiving with us? You're welcome.
That was a very quiet pause there.
Well, because I'm thinking.
What are you doing on Thanksgiving?
Well, usually we have Dana and I little meal together and kind of quiet TV on, little football. We talk about you during Thanksgiving,
but we don't want to be with
we've
you.
never been with you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, that's funny.
I
so
got
what
a
else
lot
is
going on right now.
You've got a lot. Your busy life.
I feel like
You know
we have
what?
to take a
Next
break, though.
Wednesday, I got to go to the dentist. Cavity search.
Cavity search, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So hopefully I'll get that taken care of.
Do. And you know what? If we had the old, remember Groucho Marx, say the secret word, and the duck will give you $100. You would win that right now.
$100.
Well, back in the, maybe it was more than that, but that's back in the 50s.
No, that's what it was. It was.
And that more than paid your mortgage.
That's
$100
back then. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You had change afterwards.
So.
But then I have a meeting the same day. I think a meeting of board meeting for the Rose Society.
Sounds important.
Yeah, and I've got to finish the landscaping the area up in the front. Been doing a lot of work by myself. I need people.
I know you need people. We got to find him people. We've got about a minute before the break. Can you squeeze in the quote of the week? Then we got to call our guest. Scott's going to be with us today.
Yeah, Scott Daigre with Tomatomania.
Tomatomania.
Give us a recap of this past season and what to look forward to.
So, John, you're on, buddy. Quote of the week, ladies and gentlemen, John Begnesco.
I don't think I'm doing the quote. I would.
After that build-up?
Well, I wanted to wait till after the break.
Oh, we can do that.
Okay.
We're going to wait till after the break. Hey, welcome those on Biz Talk Radio tuning into this show, which, of course, is pre-recorded. Those of you on Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in. Questions, comments right there on the right-hand side of your Facebook page here, Garden America, whatever's on your mind. We're going to call Scott during the break. Stay right there. I'm Brian Main, John Begnasco, and Tiger Palafox. We are back together in studio. This is Garden America. Okay, we are back from the break. It is Garden America. Happy weekend to you. Those listening to this pre-recorded show, whether it's Biz Talk Radio or perhaps you're on a YouTube channel and you came across this show, thank you for tuning in. So a lot of times we do make reference to morning or good morning because that's when we record the show. That said, that out of the way, John's got the quote of the week. He is ready to go. I've got Scott waiting, and boy, just going to be a fantastic show today, John.
The reason I wanted to wait, excuse me, for the quote, I was going to say, so the frog was out of my throat, but it ended up not working out.
We're casual here. Go ahead, take your time, get a sip of water. We're ready to go.
Anyway, the real reason I wanted to wait is because it pertains to our guest, Scott Daigre. We're going to be talking tomatoes, right?
You betcha.
And this quote was from Louis Grizzard, a journalist and comedian from the southern areas, Atlanta, and he said that it's difficult to think anything but pleasant thoughts while eating a homegrown tomato.
That is good. That's very good.
It's difficult to think anything but pleasant thoughts.
When eating a homegrown tomato. And there's a lot of reasons. Of it, the taste, the pride in growing it, and everything worked out the way you wanted it to. A lot goes into feeling good, Tiger.
It does.
Hey, Dorothy, yes, the Costa Rica tour is still available.
Yes.
Dorothy.
We were just talking about that earlier before the show.
And we'll talk more about that, too. Go to our website, gardenamerica.com. In the meantime, Scott is ready to go, Tiger. Let's get this show on the road, shall we?
Yeah, one of our favorite guests is joining us this morning, Scott Daigre with Tomatomania. Scott put together Tomatomania to bring all the unique and fun and different varieties to the world. Scott, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Tiger. Hey, guys, it's nice to be with you, always.
Are you up in Ojai right now?
I am in Ojai right now on a beautiful, cool morning. It's terrific up here.
It is nice.
I was going to say, you're getting some of this really nice kind of like nice October, November weather where it's warm during the days and clear skies, right?
That's exactly what's happening. It's been really wonderful. So we're on a good streak.
Hey, so Scott, give us a little bit of a recap as far as this last year Tomatomania. Just to give people a bit of information about Tomatomania, this is a traveling program that Scott has put together where he goes into different areas of Southern California and brings, hundreds of varieties of tomatoes to the region, so that way people have an amazing selection of tomatoes that maybe you wouldn't be able to find because the stores aren't going to always be able to stock all of these varieties. And not only do you do that, but you also help trial tomatoes. You find
absolutely
more information about them, so that way you can bring that information to people. So this past year, kind of unique, wet, cool spring for most of Southern California. How did tomatoes fare? How did your events fare?
Guys, it was a weird one. I think we can all agree on that. And that's the kind of response I got all season long. What's going on? I mean, really, just panicked people. You talk about why people grow tomatoes, and and pride and all of that. But it's mostly about success, right? And all that is hinged on if you actually can make it happen. And so I had people, good tomato growers, who were literally panicked in June, going, "It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen." We up in our area had, we had a really decent season in May, and saw plants move really nicely. And then with the lengthening days and the weather's getting warmer and all that, we were happy. And then June happened and everything sat. The temperatures were cooler or the same. And we had, at my test garden in Ojai, mid-June, I've got 5-6 foot plants. They looked great. Not a tomato in sight. and that's really what we saw in a lot of places. For the most part, and again, I'm going to talk mostly our area. I know people all over had some interesting things happen this particular summer. But what happened was really we saw a very late harvest in most cases. Our test garden up in Santa Ynez, super late, really, really late. We held a tasting up there, guys, and we had a nice smattering. I mean, we did a phenomenal tasting, and it was great. But the bulk of the harvest, was 3 to 4 weeks off, later than normal, because we thought, hey, let's schedule it this time because we'll have a glut.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. So we saw some interesting things. Most people, I mean, I got the emails, this was my best year ever, but boy, I sure had to wait for it, right? That kind of thing. Yeah. So people were successful, and we saw some different strategies sort of play out that I thought were kind of interesting. Do you always start with 4-inch plants, or do you grow 1-gallon plants, larger things when you start?
I always start with 4-inch plants. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most people do. Most people do. But the sort of the largest part of my program, this crazy circus that travels around and offers these tomatoes at pop-ups and residencies, if you will, is the growth or the enthusiasm for buying a bigger plant at the outset of the season. And I got to tell you, that worked in this particular season really well, because people got a larger plant, which is, in a few words, it's bigger and farther along than a 4-inch by sometimes a month, right? Mm-hmm. And they planted those in March, April, right? And they were full on fruiting in June while everybody else was waiting. So I thought that was a really interesting thing about this season. People who plant 1 gallons, it's a strategic move. You want tomatoes earlier? Plant a 1 gallon. And this year, like for instance, our test garden down in Camarillo, our first shift was 200 1-gallon plants, and we killed it in June down there. We were all surprised. Yeah. But it was great. And then, of course, everything else, at that point, the 4-inch we put in after that, we had a long wait, and, of course, they came in, and it was the end of the summer. So there were some strategies that played out for people that I'm sure helped them along a little bit, but it was a strange year.
Yeah, and it's funny, Scott, because, obviously, living in Southern California in general, we get a lot of leeway with what we can do. And, what you're describing, it's like, we just had to wait a little bit longer. Well, a lot of parts of the country, they don't have the opportunity to wait.
You are so right.
If their tomato doesn't grow a fruit by this day, they don't have
it's
tomatoes.
Wild, right?
Yeah. So we're like,
gardeners across the country. You're stronger than I. To have that kind of a lid on your season, it's tough. Yeah. And boy, you're right. If they get a waiver or a wrinkle in a season like we did, a lot of that is for naught. You just don't have one going on.
I still have tomatoes producing in my yard right now. Do you have anything, John?
I didn't do any tomatoes this year.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. I'm done.
Thought you did. You did some though, right?
Yes.
But you're done?
Up until a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I still have some tomatoes producing in my yard.
I had landscaping being done, so no tomatoes.
John, we got to get you back on that. Yeah. No, I have a garden bed I do a display garden at the Ojai Valley Inn here, and it's part of the farmhouse complex that they've got. And I have a bed of dwarf tomatoes that I started on July the 16th. I planted these things as 4-inch plants. We grew them out specifically just to see what would happen. We like dwarfs in the regular season, all that. We talk about quote unquote winter tomatoes all the time, which are absolutely not.
Scott, hey, we're going to have to take a break. I didn't want you to get too far into that story before we had a break. We'll get back to Scott Daigre with Tomatomania after the break and hear about his test garden.
We're talking tomatoes. So those of you on Facebook Live, questions For Scott, one of us, talking tomatoes this morning right there on our page, Facebook, as we continue. Going to take a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Thank you on Biz Talk for supporting our sponsors. As we do take a break on this weekend, Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, back with Scott after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. We are back from the break, thanking those on Biz Talk Radio, thanking you on Facebook Live, tuning in just about every Saturday morning. We do appreciate that. We are talking tomatoes this morning. Good friend of the show, Scott Daigre, is with us. So with that, we want to continue with his story, hopefully get him back on the right track, Tiger.
Yeah, sorry we had to cut
I was
you
going
off
on, guys.
No,
Sorry. Go ahead, Tiger.
We love the enthusiasm.
Yeah, you were just telling everybody about your garden that you did up at the resort in Ojai.
Right.
And you planted some 4-inch late in the season.
You got it. Well, I'm psyched to know you still have tomatoes. Here we are, early November, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking tomatoes, but you know what? People still have tomatoes. I'm still getting emails. Again, late season has been exaggerated by the summer, and because it was a kind summer, a lot of these plants didn't get knocked out and beat up all summer long, and they're still going. So I'm loving hearing you got stuff. We just wanted to see what would happen, guys. We put this bed in, planted it the 16th of July. I got tomatoes. I picked 6 or 8 things yesterday. This is all dwarfs, so I've got minis, I've got micros, and I've got standard like tree type dwarfs. Uh-huh. Everything has fruit on it. It is incredible. I'm so excited, and yeah, I have my doubts. It's like, look, we'll see, right? Not only are they fruiting, they look terrific. So I'm aghast. I'm thrilled to death. I got one plant. There's a dwarf tomato called Awesome. It's a yellow, kind of yellow-red blend, but it's a beefsteak style and heirloom style and the whole thing. I have 3 plants in there. One of them has 20 fruits on it, and they're not small.
Wow.
And the plant's not 3 feet tall. So you know what? You can get this done. We did it, and we learn things every year. This is part of our chin on the ground, going, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's turned out to be a long season, and that's good news.
Hey, Scott, when you talk about dwarf tomatoes, are you talking about the varieties from the Dwarf Tomato Project?
Yes, sir. That's in part, right? In part it is. This is something I'm doing an article for Fine Gardening right now, and it's on this. It's talking about Craig LaHoulier and his whole group that started in the early aughts, somewhere around 2005. And if you haven't heard about it, check it out. It's an amazing effort. And it is, again, the Dwarf Tomato Project. And this started as musings on Tomatoville, the Australian chat situation, right, platform. And they said, hey, we love heirlooms. We know they get huge, and we hear about all the time people can't handle their plants. What if we started crossing heirloom plants with some of these dwarfs that we love? And that's what happened. And so they started an effort that eventually got to hundreds of people all over the place, amateur hybridizers who shared seeds and genetics. And oddly and wonderfully, because they were doing it down under and in the northern hemisphere, they could get 2 seasons in a year, right? Because they could send seed down there and have things move a little more quickly than if you had to do generations of seed in one locale. And they came up with this amazing group of heirloom style dwarf tomatoes, and it's phenomenal. And we're all happy and benefiting from that today. They've introduced over 150 varieties, and this year they've got more coming out.
As a result of the internet, Tiger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only way you got people all over the world breeding tomatoes just because it's easy for them to communicate.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? Well, Craig LaHoulier called it crowd breeding, right? He said it's kind of that. It's that. And he's going to write a book about that soon. That'll be coming up. But it's a really fascinating thing. And here's the deal. They're delicious, and they work. And they're much less work for us in our home gardens. I really wish I could send you a picture of this bed I just talked to you about. There's nothing that's over 4 feet tall. They're nice. They're compact. The leaves are rugose and good looking, and it's just something.
Yeah.
So this whole arena is just blowing up. And whether you're in a small garden and need to grow a dwarf, or whether you're just tired of trying to stake a 10-footer, right? these tomatoes are pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's so neat because, and the production on them is spectacular as well. I had a couple of them this year, and they're just producing so well. And it's nice to be able to get the variety because it's fun to grow your staple tomatoes that you just really like the flavor on, and you can go out there, you can eat. But then it's also fun to grow the ones that have unique flavors or unique colorings. And that was always one of the hard things, is because the unique coloring or unique flavor came from a plant that you were found difficult to grow, whether it was so tall or whether it was leggy or, maybe not a great number producer, but it was still
exactly
a great tomato.
Right. You do all that work and you get 3 tomatoes, right?
Exactly.
Which we enjoyed, but hey,
but it was
more.
Exactly. So Tomatomania delayed season. We still had good production here in California. People are still getting production.
Absolutely.
Your tomato of the year this past year for 2023 was it Torch?
Melanie's Ballet.
Melanie's Ballet.
But a dwarf.
Yeah.
A dwarf tomato that we have been traveling since the first days of sort of us going, okay, we better pay attention to this. And it is a dwarf tomato project variety. And it was introduced as, it was the first paste type tomato that was in this club, in this group, and that was huge. So it was a big deal. It's a beautiful pink, sort of mid-sized plum, sort of, or not really Roma style because it's fatter than that. But I think it's a wonderful multi-use tomato, and it's delicious.
Yeah, and so the trial for this year performed well with that one as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We thought different things, Tiger. It's so bizarre. Again, weird season. I had some plants up at 3.5 feet, Melanie's Ballet, and I'd never seen that before. But the plant's just growing. It's not getting the heat it needs, right? It's not filling out. It's not fruiting early on, all that. It just continues to grow a little bit. So we saw larger plants than ever, but I just pulled out one that was still going on.
Yeah.
So it's a terrific variety. And we were excited not only because we had multiple. We always, in our tomato of the year, we always have multiple sort of goals, right? In this, we want to introduce people to a new style or new color or whatever it is that does well. And this was all about dwarfs. This was all about, hey, you got to try this. And we've been really, really pleased. It's a crowd pleaser. It's amazing.
Good. When are you going to release the 24 tomato of the year?
You know what? We'll see. We're generally January.
January,
right? I have to be sure of a lot of things. I have to be sure I can get seed, and that's the phase we're in now, right? Where I get caught short, and like, oh, geez, because everybody else likes the ones that we, that they're often in short order, and we want to be able to do something unique. So it's not one that generally is everywhere. That tends to be the case. It's a great find, that we have out in the field. I get suggestions every year, guys, and I'm so happy about that. And then we grow a lot. Obviously, my farmers who are out there go, you got to look at this one. And so we're still in that phase. We really are. And look, I have favorites from the last 10 years or 25 years. Yeah. That we haven't considered yet, that certainly have all the hallmarks of a tomato of the year.
I'm sure that you've gotten so big to the point, and the Tomatomania event has been so recognized that I'm sure that there's people out there that are like, breeders or farmers, and they create a tomato, and they probably are eager to share it with you to kind of show you what they're doing. So
well, that's awful. That's awful nice. And look, we got good friends out there. We do. And so it's really fun to be able to find what people are doing. And if you're watching tomatoes on the web and on social media and stuff, it's crazy good out there. Yeah. So there are people doing such fun things.
So upcoming 2024.
Yes.
When is going to be your first Tomatomania event?
The first event this year will be at Rogers Garden.
Okay.
So we, with these seasons, last year we were wet and we were colder early, and so we get a little freaked out about that every once in a while. So this year we start on March 1st. That event has become a 10-day event. So it's full on 10 days of tomatoes, Friday to the following Sunday, and that kicks off our year. So we'll have multiples the the next weekend, including San Diego, and then we kick in. I think we'll be back in Sonoma this year. That's something I've been also I'm constantly quizzed about. We haven't done that since pre-COVID, so we think we'll be back up there. We have a good site in mind, and well, we hope to do that.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So starting in March, carrying all the way through April,
mid to late April. We have a window, unfortunately, right? But it's a longer one. It's a large one, and so we'll generally try to sort of, the events themselves in. I have spaces where we have, again, residencies of a sort where I'll set up a shop and leave them for people who missed us in our pop-up weekends. And those will go. Some of that will go through May, but our events as such end in late April. Exactly.
All right, we're going to take another break right now. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Scott Daigre and Tomatomania.
And a couple of questions here, asking about, well, what about my tomatoes?
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. What should I do? Those kind of questions. So we're going to continue with Scott. We are talking tomatoes today on Garden America. John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. I'm Brian Main. Do stay with us as we take time out for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Okay, we have returned from the break. It is good to have you as we continue on this weekend. It is Garden America. We are talking to Scott. We are talking about tomatoes. Got a couple of 2 or 3 questions here, Tiger. Let's go back, pick up our conversation, and then perhaps John can get to some of these questions.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just chatting before the break. Scott, Tomatomania season starts in March, ends in mid-April. That's when you can go to I guess you can go to the Tomatomania website soon. Join their newsletter, find out where they're going to be and when they're going to be. Do you guys post a list of varieties that you anticipate having at these events as well?
Oh man, I would love to do that, but that gets me in so much trouble, right? I mean, that's bottom line what happens. We used to, Tomatomania started in Pasadena at a wonderful nursery called Hortus. Gary Jones created this thing many years ago before I got hold of it, and I worked with him on it. But we used to publish this enormous list, right? But there were 75, then there were 100, then there were 125, and then there were 150, and after that we just went, oh my God, we can't. And inevitably, something would be on a page somewhere that we're going to have this, and it wouldn't show up. We're farmers, and greenhouse is tough in January, and so we often couldn't get them there. They weren't big enough. They failed. We had no germination, whatever it was. And so we stopped doing that years ago, and boy, I would love to dial that in, but it's just so difficult. So we don't anymore, and we hope that surprise is nice. We just really can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
it's too big.
You got to show up and just be happy with what's there, right?
What do we have, John?
Enough great surprises that we have. Well, way too much to choose from is always our goal, but people walk around with puzzled faces, and we say, "Oof, we've done our job, yay!" But they take the time and they learn about new things, and hopefully they don't get set on a list, right?
Yep.
And they come to our event and go, "Oh my gosh, look what else there is to grow!" And then again, that's our deal. That's our goal.
Yeah. Hey, we got a couple questions here, Scott.
Go ahead, John.
Terrific.
All right. Well, Dell wants to know, and I think this might go to the dwarf tomatoes you've been talking about, but he says the tomatoes in pots that he's planted in pots had medium to low results, and his soil is clay, so it's not usable. Suggestions on maybe the size of pot and the varieties that he could grow?
Awesome. Hey, Del, growing tomatoes in a container is an amazing thing. It's a terrific way to grow a tomato. I get people come to my events all the time and apologize for that. And we say, come on, this is amazing. But you do have to do it right. On our website, there's a tip sheet. So please check out tomatomania.com, tips for growing in Scott's tips for growing in containers. I'll do that little pitch. But you hit the nail on the head with the first part of that question. The size of the pot is hugely important. You got to give these tomatoes a lot of room. They just won't work in a smaller pot. Second, soil has to be premium. You got to use a premium potting soil to start, and then amend that pot the same way you do the ground. Compost, worm castings, other organics. That tomato needs some extra. And then during the season, your care is a little different because we know containers dry out a little, more quickly than in the ground. So yes, you have a special job to do in a container. You just have to do the basics, and listen, you will be successful. You'll probably get tomatoes earlier too, because the soil in that pot is warmed up and moves that plant along a little bit. In terms of what varieties, my rule for containers is generally I don't mess with beefsteaks in containers. That's just always been my rule, because it takes so long. You've got to manage that pot for a good long time before you get fruit. The plant gets bigger. There are several reasons why I avoid that. Can it be done in a large pot? Absolutely. I just generally will stick to a smaller fruited tomato, a smaller plant, as in, yes, dwarfs, absolutely, and just something that I'll get earlier. And again, you won't have to manage it until August, because managing a container of any kind in July and the hottest part of the summer is tough. So, do all those things. And I think the hardest part about containers is for me and for a lot of people, is realizing that, yes, you have to change that soil out every season. You do.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are greedy. They take everything. They're just greedy weeds. So change it out. I know that's work. I know it's expense, but that's how you start a successful season in a container.
Hey, and to add a little bit of note, we did a trial at the nursery.
You did. I know you did a great trial.
Yeah, where we brought in Ocean Forest, and we brought in Recipe 420 from E.B. Stone, and we used their fertilizers and stuff like that. And I will say that when we did this, and we used the premium potting soils, and we used the organic fertilizers in the beginning, we did that with a few plants where we just, right from the day one, we put it in there, and we didn't do anything again. They produced well. The plants that we then refertilized, they did better. But, Scott, as you mentioned, if you start with a premium soil and then you put in some organic fertilizer, that's almost enough to go through, the first fruiting cycle, that you'll get really good fruit and plant growth. But you have to start off with good stuff. If you start off with,
you really do. The whole computer adage, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens. And look, we get tired. I know. I can see my container group from this year. I know I changed out those 6. I didn't really get to the last 6, and guess which ones work.
Yeah.
And so this is really important. I urge everybody should grow in tomatoes, and it's another strategy. Again, frankly, you want a quick tomato? Grow a 1 gallon in a container.
Yeah.
That's how to get the earliest the earliest tomatoes of the season. It's a great strategy.
We have another question.
Yeah. What
John?
else do we have, John?
Our friend Millie in Napomo says that she's got a 4th of July and a super steak tomato, and both of them have a lot of great tomatoes, but they're green. And she said she's just about given up on them turning red.
Oh, like they haven't at all turned, like this isn't like second crop. This is like she never got a red tomato.
Well, she didn't say that. My assumption would be these are, later tomatoes that are there. And maybe now with the cooler weather, maybe they're just not turning red.
I'm thinking she got something off that 4th of July.
Yeah.
That one should have been a nice producer the whole season. But the great news is, a lot of these early tomatoes, if you keep them happy, they'll have a little, there'll be a lull in midsummer. But boy, when things cool just a little bit, that fruit will start setting again. And this is probably what she's seeing. With the beefsteak, you're right. It could totally be just that, again, weird season and it was late. If you're not going to go make fried green tomatoes, right, or something like, or some tomato salsa or other things that wonderful cooks do out there, hang with it. Look, just wait as long as you can. When it's really ridiculous, and ridiculously cool and that kind of thing, a lot of East Coasters, again, in that window where they just don't get tomatoes unless X, Y, and Z happens, will take the entire plant, cut it off at the base, and hang it in a cool, dry space.
Hey, Scott, sorry to cut you off. We will get back to that answer when we get back from the break.
We're going to take a break. We've got news coming up top of the hour for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. We come back at 6 minutes after for hour number 2. Do stay with us. Coming back with Scott, I'm Brian Main, John Begnasker, Tiger Palafox. And again, we thank you for tuning in to Garden America. Stay right there. We are back. If you're tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this is the beginning of hour number 2, so thank you. Those on Facebook Live, we continue to roll along, I should say, on this weekend. Thank you for the questions, the comments. Keep them coming. Talking Tomatomania today with Scott. We are back and back on a roll, Tiger.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off again, Scott, but, we're just so enthralled with the information that you're giving. We lose track of time here in the studio, and we don't exit properly.
Right.
But, you brought up a really interesting point that not a lot of people are aware of, and it was Millie in Napomo, right? Who was talking about green tomatoes. We're getting down to the wire whether these are going to turn red or not. And you were saying that in the East Coast, when this happens, people will harvest the plant, bring it inside, and hang it upside down.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of good gardeners will do, and it's it's akin to storing anything else, right? It's just a ripening process. Now, look, we've tried it. I've done it. Do you get the kind of quality fruit that you're going to get in July when you pick it red and whatever color ripe off the plant? No, it's a little different. It is a little different. But you get the fruit. You can get the fruit, guys. And here's the other thing. I get pictures all summer long of people who have critter pressures, lots of ground squirrels or raccoons or whatever it is. Just, I get pictures of kitchen counters completely covered in green tomatoes. And the only way they get fruit is if they pick it before the critters know it's ripening. And so it can happen. If you'll store those green ones in a warm, cool place, not sunlight, not any of that, pantry, garage, cellar if you got it, whatever, store it stem down, be patient. A lot of times they'll ripen up. Yes, it does. It matters sort of when at what stage it is for sure. But especially if you've got a beefsteak that's good sized, the plant won't, the thing won't color up. The fruit won't color up until it's reached the size that it's going to be. And chances are you have some of that.
Yeah.
So store them. Try to be patient. Again, I think it's not always the quality we want, but again, especially with these folks that and it's lots of it. People who have critters after their fruits. We're farmers. We get these kind of challenges. It works, and so they turn color. They change.
You mentioned with Millie's issue that she probably didn't have production in the summer. Because
she by the way mentions that she's gotten a good crop of tomatoes.
Okay.
These
there
are
we
just
go. I like hearing that.
Okay.
Right.
Like
These are late
that.
ones she's talking about.
So
this is the bonus season. Yeah. This is the bonus season, and I'm really happy she had a good summer.
So, but you were saying that in the summertime it gets too hot, right? Like it gets too hot for the fruit, and now as we cool off, now there's a chance for it. So, what's the window where it will stop ripening? Meaning, is it going to get too cold now?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
it's nighttime temps. Nighttime temperatures largely govern tomato production. That's why you'll read that you shouldn't plant your tomatoes until it's routinely 55 degrees in the springtime at night. Right?
Okay.
It's a nightshade. This is what governs growth. You can watch and plants grow at night. I mean, this is what happens. So it's cool at night. Plant doesn't grow. Same thing would happen on the other side of the year with ripening. So
okay.
we really are. We have to follow those. That's the world. That's the weather. That's the earth. The universe talking. Right now, look. Let me sideline that to say, guys, if I waited to plant in Ojai until nights are routinely 55 degrees, I wouldn't plant till June. So I don't really follow. I don't really follow that because I'm not waiting until June to put plants in. But I do wait longer than later than LA, for example, or later than San Diego. Yeah. I'm planting in early to mid-April, which for California, for many people, is late. In our climb. So there we are.
All right.
Hey, Scott, I was just wondering, I'm sure you get requests, but your business is probably in California only?
Well, we've been all over the place.
Okay.
We started, again, I took the reins early in 2001, excuse me, and we were in LA, then in San Diego, and these environs. We did obviously garden sites in our area. And then 2007-ish, we went to the East Coast. So we've done, in all our years, we've done over 25 cities and 5 states, trying to figure out how this sucker works. And
yeah, I was wondering because
we were at White Flower Farm.
We have some listeners from Tucson, And I was wondering if you've tried anywhere in Arizona. It obviously would be different seasons, but I'm sure they would.
When do they plant tomatoes?
Later,
like later than us.
Well, they have their main season, I think, is fall, if I'm not
okay.
mistaken. So they're probably planting in September, and that's just a guess.
Okay.
I don't know. And if they're planting in the spring, I imagine it has to be really early spring because once it gets hot, they're not going to get anything.
There you go, Scott. You could be working 12. You could be working 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
You could be in different. Just always
Well,
have
you're
something.
you're reading that right, John. I mean, that's you have to get a tomato before the heat hits.
Mm-hmm.
In Vegas, in Phoenix, in any place that's like that. So I think you're right. And yes, it's that mid-season where you have to protect or start over or do whatever. In the South, I grew up in Louisiana. You got to get plants in. They plant in February before the big humidity hits. So they're picking and having tomato tastings in June down there.
They
right?
plant in
Everybody's
February
got their
in the
own
South?
rules to follow.
Did he
Really?
say February?
February? Really?
Oh yeah,
That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
super early.
they're planting very early, and then in all that southern tier, that along the Gulf Coast,
Yeah.
they're planting way early, and full on harvest is June.
Wow.
And by July, it's just so mucky. And I'm going to say this, and I know my good Louisiana gardeners down there are hearing this and going, "Oh no, we can," because I get that message too. But most people who will not go to great lengths to make sure that their harvest extends, we'll choose that as the season. We know we have great gardeners down there and everywhere who grow all through the season because they protect, because they use succession planting techniques, because if you do it right, yes, John, to your point, yeah, you can plant in harvest in November and in May if you're doing it right and if you plant the right varieties in the right spaces. So wow, it's an amazing experiment, isn't it? And we do it differently all over the states and the world.
That is one of the fun thing about tomatoes is because it is almost like a reset every year. Meaning every year you get to try new varieties. You get to try something different. You can big plants. You can do small plants. For me, when I know I'm not going to have like a lot of time for a spring vegetable garden, I will always still plant a cherry tomato because you can't go wrong. You walk out there, you walk out there, you pick a few fruit, you eat them.
Yep.
You're just happy that you're doing it.
That'll happen, right?
Yeah.
It's just that's insurance. That's tomato insurance is what that is, right?
Exactly.
Garden insurance for the summer.
Yeah. Wow. Well, did we get caught up on all the questions?
We did, yes.
Okay.
I think
Perfect.
we're good.
All right. Hey, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Lots of good information. So we talked a bit about, you're going to be starting having events in March, carry through mid-April. Are those events now being posted on your guys' website, or
we've started? I'm on Instagram mostly, so
Okay.
I've announced a couple things on Instagram so far.
Okay.
And we'll begin to fill out our website soon. So that's all coming. Absolutely.
All right. So follow his Instagram for more information, and we'll chat with you again when you're in mid Tomatomania mode. Okay, Scott.
I love that idea. Thank you, fellas. It's always great to catch up and. Enjoy the cooler time. Enjoy the downtime. Get your soil ready for tomato season next year.
Will do.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Scott.
You take care.
Do appreciate it. All right, there he goes.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff. It's fun to be able to talk about things sometimes off season, right? I feel like
of course.
I feel like he's always a great interview, but I'm sure he's very stressed out when we're talking to him normally because he's always at an event. There's always something going on. He's hearing about crop failures. He's hearing about shipping issues and all the other stuff.
Okay, so tomatoes in pots versus the ground. Because he mentioned how in a pot the next year you should put new soil in, keep regenerating. Would that be the same reason why if you have tomatoes in the ground, you want to transplant them every 2 or 3 years? No. Move them around?
No.
And what is the difference? Why? Why would you move?
Nematodes,
Well,
right?
Well, partially, yeah, and also verticillium wilt and
That's
fusarium blight. So you've got those three things in the soil that can be a problem unless you move the tomatoes.
Yeah, just if you leave it there, it's almost like
I thought it sucked up all the nutrients.
Well, it does, but in the ground it replenishes real quickly, right?
Right.
But with these other things, the nematodes and the wilt, it's just there's more of a chance that you're going to get these problems if you leave them in the same spot over and over again. And the problem, the real problem is that you'll plant a tomato in that soil, not know you have it. By the time you know you have wilt or the nematodes,
Too late.
It's too late.
We got to take a break on that note, so do stay with us. Those on Facebook Live, more questions, more comments. Going to take a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Do stay with us because this is Garden America. We have returned from the break. Welcome those on Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio. It's been Tomatomania so far this morning. So whatever direction you want to go.
You know, Millie said she's going to try Scott's advice. We're assuming the hanging upside down. But do you think, John? And I didn't want to ask Scott because I mean, I don't know. But what if you built like a little hothouse over it? You know, because people do that where they'll have a plant and they'll just do a little bit of the, I don't know what they call it, the plastic that they use on a greenhouse,
Like a little microclimate?
well, like
kind of a
situation.
situation?
But like, they'll put like a little frost cloth over it or the plastic just to keep the plant warm to extend the season. Do you think that would work or no?
Well, Scott started to get into winter tomatoes,
Yeah.
and I think he was going to say that there's no such thing as winter tomatoes or something like that. But what's normally referred to in Southern California as winter tomatoes, Scott's right, tomatoes don't grow when the nights are cold. So
55 degrees, he said, was...
Right, but there are tomatoes from cold parts of the world, Russia and Canada.
we talked
for a
about
couple.
those over the past several years.
And those will set and ripen fruit even when the temperature's in the 30s.
Is Stupichka one of those? Is that a...
Stupichka is one.
Okay.
So, but the difference is that it's not even a difference; they just won't grow.
Yeah.
So you got to plant those in August at the latest, and then they'll do
So it's
that.
too late.
Right.
Yeah.
It's November.
Right.
You're 2 months too late.
So if you go to your local home improvement
And
see tomatoes,
buy a tomato.
yeah, don't do it.
Yeah. Or a pepper plant.
What's going on?
Oh,
What are
especially
you doing?
peppers.
What are you guys doing? What's happening at your nursery in November?
We completely cleared out the top lot where we normally have our vegetables.
You're getting
herbs,
ready for
and
the
Getting ready for Christmas.
getting ready for
poinsettias?
Christmas trees.
Christmas tree?
Christmas trees. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So
We grew
that
up.
time.
I grew up, I should say, in Michigan, right?
Lansing, right?
No, Detroit.
I'm kidding.
But I went to school in Lansing.
Yep, I knew it. Somehow Lansing revolved around your life at one time or the other.
East Lansing, Michigan State, when Magic Johnson was playing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, what we used to do at the end of the season was pick all the tomatoes off the plant. And, Scott mentioned hanging them upside down. Back east, everyone has basements. In California,
yeah.
no one has a basement to hang the tomatoes upside down. But I remember my parents on the windowsill would set a bunch of green tomatoes, and they would eventually ripen right there on the windowsill. And the others they would wrap in newspaper, and then put the newspaper, in the basement or the cellar. And whenever they wanted to, it could be December, they'd go out and they would pull one out, unwrap it, and you'd have a red tomato inside the newspaper.
I
Really?
think to be a gardener in areas like Michigan, back east, Midwest, compared to here, you have to be dedicated and committed.
Yeah.
We just go out there and plant something and probably going to grow. Don't worry too much about the weather. But like what
But you get a
mentioned,
rest back there. You don't get to rest
Well,
here.
that's
I was gonna
true.
Say,
Right.
I was going to say,
the
I think
anticipation.
Right.
people are more motivated back there.
I think
because
so,
Of that.
yes.
Because
Right.
I would be really excited if I looked outside my window and there's snow and freezing and terrible weather, and I went down.
You
into
should
my,
be excited if you looked outside your window and saw that.
and then went down into my basement, and then I was able to just unwrap a nice red tomato. How
and Scott-
neat would that be?
It's almost like something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Scott mentioned the quality. It's not
Yeah.
going to be as good as a fresh picked tomato, but it's still better than a
still.
store-bought tomato.
It is, and sometimes you can't make it to the store when
Right.
it's when it's like that. Oh man.
Well, back then, there was not the shipping of fruit from other
Right.
parts of the world.
So
And there were
didn't have-
seasons, right?
You didn't have a tomato.
If you had peaches, you'd go out and you'd buy bushels of peaches so that you could can them and have them during the winter,
Right.
because there's no peaches in December or January, and now they're coming from other parts of the world.
Yep.
I was in our Bible study. Shannon and I joined a new one, and one of the people there works for one of the avocado packing houses in Fallbrook, and I was mentioning to him, I went to Major Market and they had Hass avocados from Fallbrook, and they had Hass avocados from Mexico. And he mentioned to me, he says, "Oh, I won't even eat the ones from Mexico." But I had bought both because obviously the ones from Mexico were a lot cheaper. They were $3 for $5, where the ones from Fallbrook were $2.99 each.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a huge difference in the quality. The locally grown quality was much better.
And do you think that has to do with the quality
Packing,
of the,
shipping, traveling, all
yeah,
that?
or is it have to do with in Mexico they have to harvest it unripened, package it, ship it, so that way when it arrives,
it's ripe.
It's
or will be
be
ripe.
soon, right? Because that's what they do. People don't realize with bananas that the bananas that they harvest, they're very unripe. When they harvest them,
Oh yeah,
and then they
it's
go to their
green.
packing houses.
Some people like them green though, right?
and then
Brian?
they go to the.
Now, let me tell you how we buy.
Nobody likes the green
Let me tell you how we
banana.
buy bananas. So because you want them to last, so we'll buy a bunch that are green,
Yep.
and then like maybe 3 or 4 that are
That
ready
are-
to eat.
yeah.
And then so when you're done with those,
Then the
the
green,
green
ones
ones
are now
hopefully
ready,
have
right?
started to ripen up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, when they harvest bananas, those what do they call them? Hands, fingers,
Yeah,
groups,
a hand.
whatever,
Hand
are,
of bananas.
are fully green.
Right.
Because then they have to get into a truck, go to a dock, get on a boat,
You have to be fumigated
fumigated,
to get rid of the.
drive that
Spiders
boat
and
to the
things.
port, unload from the dock, go to the distribution warehouse,
Right.
then get actually distributed to the grocery stores. So, if you can get a banana that's local, that's going to come straight from the farm
Yep.
to the store, and it's gotten to sit on that plant. So that's what I'm asking. Do you think that avocado, the fact that it's able to sit on that tree longer and then get harvested and then get to is the difference in the flavor, or do you think it was a varietal?
Where do you
'Cause
get local bananas?
I get them from my house.
Do you have a little banana stand out front?
Exactly.
Yeah, where do you get bananas in San Diego?
Yeah, there used to be that banana farm up near.
They did?
Yeah,
Really?
it was
banana
on the
farm?
coast. I think it was called Richardson's.
I mean,
Maybe-
Cardiff?
Not there anymore. huh?
Where?
No,
where
no,
was
it was
at?
up near Santa Barbara.
Really?
Yeah,
I feel like that would be way too cold, but no. It was not bad.
I kind of thought the same thing, but I guess because it was right there on the coast, I don't think
That
they're-
Monterey Peninsula is really neat in the sense of like they grow a lot of plants and edible crops that I didn't
Right.
think would grow there.
We have to take a break, and I'm not sure you're going to remember this, but what happened to the great story John had 2 weeks ago that he was supposed to save until next week? We're going to think about that because we have a break. For our friends on Biz Talk Radio, those on Facebook Live, stay with us here on Garden America. Garden America is back. We are in studio, obviously, back from the break on Biz Talk Radio, a bit shorter on Facebook Live. We're trying to remember that great story. It's been a couple of 2 or 3 weeks.
I can't remember the great story I wanted to tell you when I first walked in today.
Right.
So from 3 weeks ago, I have no idea.
Anyway,
It might come to
it
us.
might come. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've kind of jiggled our brains there a little bit.
Yeah, Tiger's good at researching that. So if
I think he's
finds,
researching right now.
Is he?
He's doing something. He's got the phone to his ear, and I would imagine listening to one of our previous shows. I'm guessing.
Was it the show with Gina? Because that was the one 3 weeks ago.
Well, we had one show after that.
Well,
Did
she
we?
said, yeah, she said 2 weeks ago.
So this was after the Gina show.
Okay.
Forever to be remembered as the Gina show.
Veronica says that her mom grew bananas and they were really good and they had a nutty flavor.
Slightly nutty.
Do you know there are many varieties of bananas? You probably have a couple banana books at home, Tiger.
Yeah.
Like the complete book of bananas.
Of course.
And
Next to the complete book of apples.
that is huge, by the way. That New York apple book, is that the one you're talking about? It's probably
I'm
it's
just
like
making stuff up,
two
Sean.
in- two
Yeah, but
inches
he's making a
thick.
big apple joke, New York,
Oh,
No, that's true. That's why it's called the Big Apple. Did you know that?
because
they used to
Because
grow
they
apples.
all the apples they grow there.
Yeah.
I thought it had something to do with New York being the apple of your eye or something.
Could be.
The apple of my eye.
I don't know, but it was a big state for apple growth.
Yep.
Anyway, bananas, the reason I wanted to mention it is there's a lot of varieties of bananas, just like there's different varieties of apples, you
Yep.
know, like Tiger's talking about.
But you'll get a lot more variety of apples in a store than you will bananas.
yeah,
well,
and
yeah,
I want to talk
commercially.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's because these varieties aren't grown commercially. Same thing with avocados, you
Yep.
know, that you were talking about. There's probably 100 varieties of avocado available. There's purple avocados, watery avocados.
Giant avocado.
Yeah,
Small avocado.
5-pound avocados.
The watery does not sound good.
No, but they really like those back east
Yeah.
in Florida. They're kind of bland. But
but-
anyway, the same thing with bananas. And you can grow these at your home. If you research banana varieties, you can plant bananas that you won't be able to buy in the store. Different sizes, different flavors.
Little ones, little
different-
finger bananas.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. And this has been around for a long time. And John, you might know more about it than me, but
Because I've been around for a long
well,
time.
I feel like you would know more about this. But the big talk is, and this has been happening for years, that we're not going to have bananas anymore. Because right now, the world grows, is it Cavendish or Cavendish?
Cavendish.
Cavendish. That's the banana you buy in a grocery store. It's Cavendish. And the problem is that there is a disease that is running through all of the fields. And so all of these growers that have grown this banana for years and years and years is now having problems growing these bananas because there's a disease and they can't stop the disease. And so they're saying, oh, we're not going to have bananas one day because
They're just giving up right now.
yeah, because we can't figure out how to cure the disease. And this is the only variety we grow. And, so anyways, but like what John said, the thing that I get frustrated with this whole thing is the reason why that's a problem isn't because we can't grow bananas. It's just that we're so hung up on one variety when there are a ton
Yeah.
of options out there. So if we would just pivot and start growing other varieties, it's fine. And it's not in like you say, like there's really good tasting varieties out there that are even better than the Cavendish banana. So,
Is it because the Cavendish is easier to grow, easier to ship? There's got to be a reason why we're just using or
all of those
eating
reasons.
one banana.
No, all of those
species
reasons.
or
It's
variety.
a great producer. It's easy to ship. So yes, all of those reasons is why, but that shouldn't stop us from growing other things. is
And
what
they
I mean.
should be
And that's
looking into
reason-
that right now.
Yeah, well, I've been hearing about this issue for years and years and years, and I still see a lot of bananas at the grocery store. So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the problem. It is a big, from what I hear.
Well,
it
first
is
of
a
all,
big problem.
I assume they've identified the disease.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
So you need to be now working on how to eradicate that disease.
yeah. But I mean, there's
To
things.
say that
I mean,
it's going to be no bananas anymore, the disease is going to take over.
Well, like we talk about blight on trees.
Right.
There's really no cure for blight as well, fire blight. And so there's just things that I think that they have to figure out a way around it because we can't find a cure for it. So,
do you remember there was the same problem with coconuts?
Mm-hmm.
The lethal yellows disease that was incurable, but they did find varieties of coconuts that were resistant to the disease. So, same thing could happen with bananas. Some varieties may not be susceptible to the disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, but there's a lot of really neat bananas out there. So I think that if anything, it'll force us just to approach bananas
it differently.
We have different.
Sure. There's the 1,000-finger banana.
Is it produce small ones or is it just a huge
little ones, right?
bushel?
No, the huge tomato is rhinoceros horn, which is
The huge banana.
You mean the huge banana?
yeah,
Rhinoceros
banana.
horn?
We were just talking about
Right.
tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's hard for me
Yeah.
to get
Pivot
shifted
from tomatoes to bananas.
Right. The rhinoceros horn banana is 2 feet long,
Jeez.
so that's
Don't you?
big,
Let me see what 2 feet looks like.
right?
And that's a banana. What about the circumference? I mean, because that'll feed 3 people.
But
Right?
I was talking about
Can you imagine a banana split with that?
1,000-finger.
Oh my gosh, there you go.
You have to have tubs of ice cream.
Tiger talks about how bananas grow in hands, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The 1,000-finger is probably maybe a bunch that's 4 or 5 feet long
My gosh.
with hundreds of little tiny bananas.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
And then there's-
adorable.
Those are the fun size.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's
Adorable.
praying hands bananas.
Which
where-
hands?
Praying hands,
Oh.
where the bananas don't separate. So the hand is all stuck together.
Oh.
We should try to find some pictures and post those.
Yeah.
Well, you can Google them.
Yeah, I guess you could, right?
It's in there.
You know that is the one thing about your area up in Fallbrook, John, is there's a lot of really neat fruit growers. Like growers of not just trees to sell,
A lot
but
of
actual like farms that grow really unique fruit. And I'm sure you probably have a banana farm up there and there's all kinds of
No
different
banana
avocados.
farms.
What is it about Fallbrook?
It's an agricultural
I
area.
know, yeah.
Exactly. And they, because of the hills and because of the valleys, it's a wide variety of growing areas. Because, you guys, I remember that one time I was helping you shoot a video for something, and you took me to a trial garden, test garden, a farm, and it was back in the hills, and there was an area where there was a valley, and they were growing a certain type of vegetable. And then there was an area where they were growing another type of vegetable because it was a hill.
Yeah, that was in Bonsall, right by Fallbrook.
Yeah, and then there was another hill that was more sun exposed.
Just based on the topography of
Yeah.
the
And
land.
You know
and
what's at the top of that hill right now?
A radio tower.
No,
A hotel.
Coffee.
Oh, is there?
Oh, they're
Yeah.
growing coffee up.
They're growing
really?
coffee there,
Yeah.
which
So-
is something maybe 20 years ago you would have never imagined you could
No.
get coffee out of California.
San Diego coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just really neat area, Brian, as
Yeah,
far as
sure.
and because it's not just flat and open,
Right.
you have options. Then that's why you have options, is because it's not flat and open. If it was flat and open, you would only be able to grow one thing. It's either
Right.
going to be cold or hot,
Right.
so you got to figure it out.
But you're right. The landmass, the topography dictates what you can grow.
Yeah.
And different varieties of things.
And it's not, I would say, I guess they do consider that inland, but coastal weather is cool.
Right,
and,
right, sure.
And inland weather could be hot or cold. I think that's probably why also they can grow a wide variety of trees.
Go ahead, John. I know you're looking at that comment.
Yeah, Lila says that blue Java is her favorite banana.
Blue Java.
She said so
does
far
sound
she's
good,
only
doesn't it?
had two crops in 6 years.
Hey.
So I don't know if it's really her favorite or she remembers
only
that
one.
last crop was really good. But that's also part of the reason you don't get all these varieties is they may not be as productive.
Yeah.
And when you're growing bananas,
True.
you only get one crop per plant, right?
Yep.
And then you cut that down to about waist high. Don't cut it to the ground because the nutrients that are in that stump if you want to call it that, go back in to nourish the banana plant.
It is break time. We have one more segment. That's it, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. So,
By the way, Brian, watch out for that store when you go in and they say, yes, we have no bananas.
it's an old song, Tiger. We can talk about that after the break here on Garden America. We made it. Final segment. As we continue on Garden America, Tomatomania, bananas have been a topic of conversation today. Blue Java.
You know where they have amazing
Fallbrook?
bananas? Costa Rica.
Speaking of that, what a great segue. It is time we talked about Costa Rica. Bananas and coffee and volcanoes and orchids and surfing and ocean and zip lining. We are going to
never
Costa
think of putting
Rica.
all that stuff together.
We're going to go to Costa Rica, John, April 20th through the 29th of 2024.
Yeah.
And there's still somebody had a question.
This week,
Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
booking mine.
I'm booking
You're
yours.
booking yours. My dad's booking his.
Dana's
booking
booking
hers. John.
He's getting around
He's
to it.
getting
He's got
around.
Hawaii first in January.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's right.
He's like, oh gosh. forgot
But in
about that
December, I have Idaho.
one. Oh,
You're busy.
I am.
Yeah, get it all in, huh?
Yeah, that's why I told you I'd get all my medical stuff taken care of, the cavity search at the dentist next
Yeah.
week.
That's 2 cavity search mentions this morning. That's more than we bargained for. So, again, Costa Rica, there's still plenty of time. The best advice is to go to our website, gardenamerica.com. Great homepage. Shows you pictures of Costa Rica. The itinerary is there. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah.
Somebody asked this morning, still available? Yes, seats are still available, but going fast, as they say,
Right.
when you're selling tickets. So check it out, gardenamerica.com. Thanking our friends at Colette Travel for putting this together. We went to Europe with Colette, John, several years ago.
Went to Italy, right?
Italy.
Yeah, that was fun.
Had a great time. France and areas, but it's Costa Rica. So if you have friends, family that want to go, say, hey, let's go to Costa Rica with Garden America.
yeah, and I mean, all that banana talk did remind me of it because
That was good, though, Tiger.
because
You're right.
when you're there, it is really neat to be in those places where you're talking about that tomato that is turned red in your basement is still better than the tomato that you buy at a
Right.
grocery store. Well, when you're in Costa Rica, bananas,
You're at the source.
papaya, mango, all of these things are all. I mean, one of the hotels that we're staying at towards the last, I saw that they have all of that fruit on site. They just have those trees growing
Right there.
on their hotel.
Open your window and pick
in
something.
the morning buffet.
Right.
All of that fruit came from their hotel, and it's just producing and
This
producing
fruit
and
on your
producing.
plate was picked this morning.
Exactly. It really blew my kid away because they were so accustomed to apple juice and orange juice from the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they actually had fresh pressed apple juice and orange juice,
Oh.
it's a little cloudier, maybe a
Yeah,
little
of
thicker,
course.
Right.
And they were like, this isn't apple juice. And I was like, this is
real apple
this
juice.
is apple juice.
Did they like it or no?
Tasia did, Isaac did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet he would now, though.
Because I know
He's
my
older.
grandkids, it's not only the flavor, it's the appearance,
The way
and
it
texture.
looks.
Put it
Absolutely.
in a cup that they can't see
Yeah.
and just let them drink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right about that this is the source right here,
Yeah.
the well.
I remember last week when the kids were here, Kyle wanted blueberry pancakes, so Shannon made pancakes and put some
fresh blueberries in it.
Yeah, and he wouldn't eat them because the blueberries don't go in the pancake; they go on top of the pancake with whipped cream. So they can be really picky eaters, you know.
It's
I
just
was
like when
that way.
you're a kid, you don't want
Yeah.
anything on your plate to touch each
And
other.
was it
right?
and was it
And
like
no
the,
crust, no
Nope.
crust on the bread.
and was it like the sweet blueberries because they were in like a blueberry syrup, or were they fresh blueberries?
No, they were fresh
okay.
blueberries.
I never had a problem with crust as a kid.
Really?
But I know kids would come to school and all the crust would be cut off. I
Yeah.
didn't have a problem.
never had a problem with crust.
You know those false things they tell you to do things when you're a kid? The reason, and I know the reason why I didn't have a problem with crust, and is because I was told if you eat crust, you'll learn how to whistle. Like you can whistle. You know? And I was like, I'm going to eat all my crust
Gonna learn
because
to whistle.
I've
I thought
never
whistling,
heard that.
I
But
thought
that's good, though.
whistling
But
was
you're
cool.
right, though. Things that they would tell kids.
Yeah, and I totally believed it. I was like, I don't know how this happens, but crust
Here's
makes
another
you
one.
whistle.
If you start smoking cigarettes, it'll stunt your growth.
Yeah,
Well, I don't want
yeah.
my growth to be
Drinking
stunted.
Drinking coffee.
Right,
Starts your
same
growth.
way.
Yeah.
And other things that
Yeah,
are
I
not
would-
necessarily true.
I was thinking of those things myself.
I think the punchline was, can I do it just until I need glasses?
But yeah.
But anyway, I'm excited about. I hadn't really thought about that, going to Costa Rica and tasting some of that stuff, vine ripened or tree ripened.
ripened,
How about
yeah.
fresh coffee, too?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like my coffee.
I don't
You know,
know.
it's-
I don't know about the coffee because I remember in Cuba we had coffee that was fresh brewed through the sock.
It was super strong.
I don't
or
know.
What?
Maybe
Bitter?
they should have used clean socks.
Yeah, I was going to say, whose socks were they?
Yeah, I'm not a big bitter coffee person.
Yeah.
I like bitter coffee.
You like bitter coffee?
No, I like it deep, rich, and dark.
But
I'm
not
dark
bitter.
coffee, but not bitter. I like it. I call it Norwegian river mud, where the spoon has to stand up by itself.
See, I'm not big on espresso.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can do
if you-
espresso.
Do you like espresso? I know you like cappuccino, and
love yeah.
I like cappuccino too.
You know, we have some very tiny spoons at home. And the other day I said, where'd these spoons come from? Oh, I think Italy. What do you mean you think Italy? We had cappuccino. I think they might have got just mixed up with our luggage. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, that's a cool little memory.
Yeah, I'm surprised you would have cappuccino in your luggage, but
Yeah.
Well, it's the see. Gina says Italy had the best coffee. I agree. I love the coffee in Italy.
yeah. Well,
We've got a minute, John. Don't get into a long story.
no, I have a really exciting story.
For
You're
next
going to
week,
share for another week.
Lila, mark it down.
No, I'm just kidding about that. But I'm excited about going to a tropical country
Yes.
in the winter. Even though we live in California, our winter is not that nice.
It's going to be fun.
Be cold and rainy, and join us.
Yeah, go to gardenamerica.com for
Right.
all the details, as they say. And that's going to do it. We're going to wrap it up for this weekend here. Don't forget this show is uploaded to our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show, sometime this afternoon. Plenty of ways to hear us podcasting, Alexa, Spotify, Google. We are all over the map, as they say. So until next week, have yourself a safe rest of your weekend, a safe week, and we'll do it again right here on Garden America. Take care.